Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I am Tyler Osby.
And it's a discussion episode today. We haven't had one of these in a while, and I am amped for it.
We haven't had a good discussion episode in a little while. What was our last discussion episode? I can't even remember. So long ago.
Can't remember either. It was a while back. But today we are going to talk about the Endgame of games.
We've been playing a lot of, through our Codex playing history, we've played a lot of like MMOs or games with MMO trappings like Destiny. We're playing World of Warcraft now. So we've played a lot of games with an end game.
Yeah.
Right? So now we want to talk a little bit about Endgame. Well, we're going to talk a lot of bit about Endgame and just sort of discuss what we think makes a good Endgame. What is the Endgame? First of all, we need to agree on a definition of what the Endgame is. And then, what makes good Endgame? What would be our ideal Endgame, I guess? I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that.
That's a good one. That's a real good one.
Yeah. So should we kick it off by saying, here's what our definition of the Endgame is?
And we talked about this. Official Codex History of Video Games podcast definition of the end game. Take it away, Tyler.
And if you disagree, that's totally okay. We're not gonna die on this hill putting a line in the sand here.
I am dying on this hill. I made a bunker. It's full of WoW plushies. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. But for the purposes of our discussion today, the end game is when you're done with the main portion of the game and now you're still playing the game. Why are you still playing the game after the main portion? And that's really, really broad, but it covers cases like in MMOs, it's like once you hit max level, that's not the end of the game, right? What are you doing after the end of the game or the end of the campaign, which there's some muddy waters there and stuff like World of Warcraft. But also single player games can have an end game too, where it's like once you've beaten the game or finished the story, what are you doing afterwards? And that applies to a lot of open world games, the Grand Theft Auto games. Like you beat the story, but that doesn't mean you just put the game away. You've done everything, right? There's still tons of stuff to do. So what constitutes good in that case? And we'll probably focus a lot more on the MMO thing because it's on the top of our minds right now as we play World of Warcraft and wrestle with what am I doing here?
No, the philosophical question of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. What are we doing here and why? And how does it all ladder together? And we've can kind of compare that with Destiny as well, because that has an end game as well, but it's a very different one. How would you describe the end game of Destiny?
I would say the end game of Destiny is it's fashion focused. No, I mean, it is fashion focused as in you want to get the best armor you can. And the interesting thing about Destiny is I feel like because there's only 3 classes, you have Hunter, you have Warlock, and you have Titan. The armor is like this one set of armor that is good for each class, and that is it. Whereas WoW is infinitely more complex, I think, based on just how many classes there are and everything. So I would say I would say Destiny is a more streamlined end game than WoW. If you like numbers and you love finding the best loadout, I think WoW is more your speed. But if you just want to get into a raid and you're a first-person shooter fan, Destiny is more your speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've been, now that I'm playing WoW, I'm realizing why I chose Destiny first. Because I think, personally, Destiny is more for me, only because I don't... And, I mean, this is going to be maybe a little... this might be a hot take-ish. I don't care for the traditional MMO gameplay. Walk up to an enemy, press a bunch of buttons on your keyboard, your numbers 1 through 9, and then kill it, and then walk up to the next enemy, press a bunch of buttons 1 through 9, and do it. I know that's a very simplified way of saying it, and you do way more than that, but especially in a dungeon scenario, which is what I've been playing. I have not played a raid yet, so I could just be coming back 2 weeks from now and just completely taking back everything I'm saying right here. But personally, I've go up to an enemy and I'm tanking and I hit the same 8 or 9 buttons, and then once they go off cooldown, I hit those same 8 or 9 buttons again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know if it's really my speed. Whereas I think Destiny's biggest selling point is the gunplay is good. It just feels good. It's fun to shoot aliens in Destiny, and that's what it's got going for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can get into a whole argument like, should we even be comparing these two games? Probably not. Like,
that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I lean more Destiny because I think it's faster to get to those raids. It's not very fast. You're still going to do some grinding, but WoW, I said WoW, but I meant like in World of Warcraft, it is like if I wanted to start a new character, it would be another like 40 plus hours until I'm where my guy is at now.
Yeah. Until you can get to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah. And I just don't want to do it. I'm like, there's no way I could do that right now. There's just no. So, but yeah, go ahead.
So my thing about like Destiny's endgame versus WoW's endgame is, well, number one, it is tough to compare them because shooty bang bang in Destiny and then like mash buttons on your keyboard for World of Warcraft. I do think we'll get to a point where, especially when we do raids, that you will have to do a lot more thinking, especially as a tank, like which buttons to press to make sure that you hold the aggro of the things right, to make sure you're doing your job correctly. Because like right now, most of playing the dungeons, even up through heroic dungeons, heroic difficulty is like tank and spank is kind of what they call it. It's just like you just hold the aggro and everybody else kills them, and that's like we just do that over and over again.
And I've gotten pretty good at that, I feel like.
You have,
not to brag or anything, but
you will have to think a little bit more in raids, I think, as we get like different enemies, or there will be more than one tank, so you'll have to be like trading back and forth with that tank. That's where it gets where it can potentially get a lot more fun too, is coordinating with another tank, assuming that they're good and you like playing with them.
Well, even show how much of a noob I am, like just last night I learned how to interrupt. I had no idea I could even do that. So that's why I'm saying, like, I'm complaining about this now, but there's a very good chance in like 2 weeks I'll be like, WoW is the greatest game of all time.
That's another good criticism of it, because what a lot of people will say before you get to the end game of a game is like, well, before you get to the end game, it's teaching you how to play the game, right? And sometimes that takes a long time if it's a very complex game. The fact that you've made it probably tens of hours into the end game and still didn't know that you could interrupt, and that's not a dig at you. Like the fact that the game hadn't taught you that yet is like that means that the whole leveling up part to learn your class didn't really work, right?
Here's where it is. Here's where it is on me, Tyler. Is as a monk, I did go to like a monk training area, and they did teach me how to interrupt, and I just straight up forgot I could do it. I also forgot that I could taunt. Like I have provoke as a power, and I just have had that off my keyboard for weeks until last night. So I think it really is on me.
Well, it's also tough because when you're going through that tutorial and you've never played an MMO before, or like a traditional MMO like World of Warcraft, and you've never played a tank role before in that world, like these terms that they're throwing at you, like here's an interrupt, here's a taunt, like you don't even know what you're supposed to use that for, so it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And then once you're in the dungeons, you forgot you ever knew about it. And now I bet if you went back and played that tutorial, you'd go, oh, this is a lot more useful. Like ironically, the tutorial is more useful after you have played the game a little bit, which is
this actually comes up to like one of the first of many points we're going to talk about with Endgame is, if I didn't have you and our friends to teach me WoW, I would never jump in. Because it is really hard to play with randos. And not only like you're like, oh, random video game person being a scumbag, but also like just the communication, even with the little things in the dungeon, like I wouldn't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think our friend put a skull tag over a guy's head, and I was like, how do you do that? I had no idea how to do that. So, But I think the first thing that makes a good end game, if we want to move on to this discussion, is friends to play with, is probably the number one thing. In an
MMO, in like a single player game, that it obviously doesn't apply.
Yeah, but in like if you're talking about an MMO end game, whether it's Destiny, WoW, Guild Wars, I don't know, whatever you play. Diablo 3 even has technically an end game to it too. Like you need to have people there playing it with you, because the teamwork aspect of it is what really makes it the best. Yeah, I think you're like accomplishing something. You're completing a goal. You feel good about it.
Yep. I guess the good way to compare Destiny and WoW then here is when we talk about what the end game is how structured that end game is too. Because I would say in Destiny, generally what you're trying to do in the end game is you probably want to beat the hardest content I hope. Or maybe just the goal is I just want to hit max power level, like whatever the max is at that moment in time. And if that's your goal in Destiny, there's a ton of different ways you can get there, and you don't even have to play the hardest content necessarily. You don't even have to do like raids. You can do other like different things. And so when you see somebody at max power level in Destiny, you don't actually know how they got there. You can kind of make some assumptions that they maybe did the raid, or they maybe did like super hard Nightfall strikes or something like that. Whereas in WoW, you look at somebody and you see they have max level stuff. You can see the specific gear they have that like drops from the raid, but generally the only way to get to like the max level is by playing the hardest content and the hardest raids. And the other thing about that is in Destiny, that hardest content is pretty accessible to everyone if you want to be able to do it, right? In WoW, you just got to be like a part-time job if you want to hit the actual max level. Like that's not actually a realistic goal for most people, I don't think, to be able to hit that level, which kind of turns some people off. Like if you can't even be the most powerful in the game, like why even play? Whereas in Destiny, anybody can hit that, right? Even if you play by yourself or just with a couple of other people, you can still hit that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like the part-time job thing that you said is really like the hardest part for me. Like personally, like where I'm at in my life, like I am without a doubt fully comfortable saying I am losing the need to play grindy games is what I'm learning about myself. And I think that's another reason why Destiny is a little more for me in that aspect, because I'm already like pretty I almost said established, like I'm well known in Destiny. No, but like I already have 3 characters, each of different classes that are pretty high level. You know, if I skip like right now, we're skipping pretty much Beyond Light. We don't care because we're playing WoW. But if I wanted to jump back in, it wouldn't take a lot for me to jump back in. But like I was saying before, if I wanted to really go all out in WoW, I'm going to need to make 4 more characters, probably minimum, and I'm going to have to level those all up each, or like without boosting, which would take a long time. Boy. And then find a group of people where I'm rating on each of those characters every single week.
Yeah, depending on what your goals are. Like if your goal is truly to just,
I was talking about to being the best. Like if we're going to be the best, like no one ever was.
Yeah, I mean that's the same for any game really. Like to be the best, like no one ever was. Like because you can say that for PvP and Destiny too. Like if you wanted to be whatever the highest rank is, like it's got to be a part-time job.
Yeah, which is pretty. It's just pretty crazy because I remember like as a child, a teenager, and all of my friends played World of Warcraft and I didn't play it and I didn't really understand because I was so afraid of a subscription. Like we talked about this before, I think, but I didn't really understand it. And my friends being like, "Oh, I can't tonight. I got a raid," you know, and not understanding like, why are you playing a video game like that? And now I get it. I fully get it because when you're a teenager, you want to be the very best at this video game.
Yeah,
you know, and so I think having that as a part of it is very important, though, to being a good end game. Is you have to have that ultra competitive level of
there is that super high end ultra competitive, which I don't think exists in Destiny raids, except for maybe like world first, right? Like the best of the best, like they go for world first, and they try to do it in like within 24 hours, right? Whereas
it used to exist in 2 ways. It used to exist in Trials of Osiris before that was all screwed up too. It used to be raid. The golden age of Destiny was Destiny 1 when Trials of Osiris was perfect and there were no problems with it.
Yeah.
And you could either raid and be a PvE person, or you could be a PvP person and get really good at Trials. And both of those, like looking at Twitch, like both of those are really popular to watch on Twitch.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like now it's pretty much world's first is it on Destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. And World of Warcraft does have a PvP, like a whole endgame PvP thing that's like a separate thing. We've never even touched it. Which might be fun to try, but like for playing the hardest content in World of Warcraft, like it comes out and then no one beats it for like days or weeks because they're still powering up and getting to that point. And like Mythic rating at that level, like getting 10 people together that can play at that level for Mythic rating, like we're just probably not going to do it ever because like that's how out of reach it is for us. Whereas like doing the hardest raid, which they don't even have difficulty levels anymore, do they, on raids for Destiny? So it's like,
don't think so. They used to have challenge modes and they don't have challenge modes anymore.
Yeah.
It's another thing. Like really,
or prestige.
Like, it's pretty great. The more we talk about it, the more I realize now how much Destiny has regressed back from being like having all this stuff you could do. And now it's pretty much like you play the raid. Well, good job.
Yeah.
High five.
Well, yeah, and once you've done it, then it's like there isn't much beyond doing it other than like, well, I just want to get all of the weapons that drop from it, or I want to get all of the gear that drops from it because this segues into the next part of our discussion, which is
good
fashion.
segue. High fashion.
High
Yes.
fashion.
Getting those tower casuals on, showing off what you got.
How many times have you played old content in Destiny? And I can vouch for having done this both in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14. Like played old content that's not relevant just to get the shirts and the pants and the hats and the shoes.
The answer is an embarrassing number of times.
Yeah.
Because it's also hard to in Destiny because now that Destiny has the collection screen, you can see what you're missing.
Yeah.
So I would like go out and play just patrols on like old areas of Destiny 2 just to try to get pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, why am I doing this? But I want to fill up all the collections and the spaces. It's satisfying.
You gotta check all the boxes. And
Exactly.
in games like Final Fantasy especially, but I think World of Warcraft has something similar. Or a scene that's similar to this is like the whole transmogrification community where they like the whole point is to look a certain way. Like if you want to cosplay as something else, like there are people that like look like Mario in World of Warcraft or Samus or like, this is my Link. I'm only naming Nintendo characters, but like if you visit the Final Fantasy 14 subreddit, like half the posts are people like cosplaying as something else. And in order to get those, like get that gear, you need to do something for it, right? So it's like, I need this specific shirt because it's part of the thing that I'm making to make myself look like Link. I got to go do this old content so that I could get this shirt. And that's one thing that I think Destiny fails a little bit on is because you can get that gear, but it's not actually useful to you. You can't actually play the game in it. You can wear it around the tower where level doesn't matter. But in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, they both have like a transmogrification system where it's like, if you have owned this at one point in time, you can just look like it no matter what gear you're actually wearing. And so then you can actually raid in your bikini or whatever.
Yeah, there was like they're talking about adding transmog stuff to Destiny, and I think they've done it.
They really
a little
should.
Bit. They've done it a little bit, I think, in a way, or they're talking more about that process now. But yeah, it's the fashion thing, and this kind of goes to my other point too, is just collectibles in general. Mm-hmm. Like in WoW, you have pets. In Destiny, you have ships and sparrows. Like getting a lot of those silly cosmetic stuff because you completed the craziest part of this one raid challenge or something in whatever game or got a crazy WoW achievement is something that needs to be in a good end game.
Because I agree.
Because that, again, like you're showing off, it's what makes you special in this massive multiplayer online game. Like what makes you special? Oh, you did this and you got this crazy pet and now you're so cool when you walk around a city. Like people know in Stormwind, this guy did that thing. So
here's something I'll put forth then. There's two kinds of goals then in an end game, right? There's the ones that the game sets for you, like beat the raid or do this thing. But then there's also the self-directed goals of, I want that staff because it looks like Jafar's staff from Aladdin, and I want to do a whole thing where I look like Jafar. Well, that staff only drops in this dungeon from 3 expansions ago. I'm gonna go play that dungeon over and over and over again until that staff drops. And like it's the self-directed, so the structured goals that the game gives you and the goals you give yourself, right?
And I personally think self-directed goals are some of the most fun ever made in video games. Like,
yes,
I'm thinking about like Nuzlocke runs in Pokemon. Like things you do to challenge yourself are what I want to see, like on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So that's that you need a large variety of stuff to do. And in that sense, games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy have a lot going for them because they've been around for like more than a decade in WoW's case, or almost a decade in Final Fantasy's case. And Destiny's getting up there too, I guess, although the first game doesn't count for this. But like having all of that old content to go back through to achieve those goals of whatever you're trying to do is pretty cool too. And it's nice that those games don't get rid of content in the same way that Destiny now has gotten rid of content.
That's kind of also another thing that's kind of taking me out of Destiny. Like, I know it's like, I should be happy because I did.
There's reasons for it, sure.
Away. Yeah, and I mean, the game was also like huge gigabyte wise. But as far as like, and I should be happy that I did that stuff. But I'm realizing now there's like, again, it goes back to the whole like FOMO thing of like, there was a good month or two before Beyond Light came out where everyone was like, because I still followed like Destiny subreddits and things like that, where people are like, you got to do this now.
Yeah.
You know, because it's going to go away. And I hate that as a video game person. Like, I hate the idea of you're going to take this fun activity that I enjoy and put me on a schedule. Like, that's not what I'm interested in any way, shape, or form. And that's kind of pulled me out of it because we never beat the Leviathan raid on Prestige mode.
We never
which
did.
is something that I really wanted to do because it was my last Steam achievement I needed to unlock. And also, it gave us the Legend of Acreus skin. Like we would finally beat the quest from the very beginning of vanilla Destiny 2.
Oh, man.
And you can't do that. You can't do that anymore because Leviathan's all gone. So it's like, oh, well. I mean, and that's something I kind of want to go into with collectibles also is this is a big part of like a single player endgame. Like, I played Breath of the Wild, and I didn't get all the Kokiri seeds because there's just no way.
There's no way,
right?
yeah.
But I did play through all the DLC. I got all the shrines, and I even got Link's crazy motorcycle because I wanted it, and it was fun, and I actually really enjoyed that. And, I mean, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I got all the hidden packages, so my crazy mansion could have all the toys and stuff in it, like the helicopter and things. And I think you need to have those in a single player game now in 2020. That's like required almost.
Yeah. And that's a thing that personally for me in single player games kind of turns me off of them because I don't want that, like that sort of busy work that isn't testing any skills or like causing me to have fun. Like, finding the hidden packages in Grand Theft Auto is not something that I think is fun. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I've only done it for Vice City, and I did it because Vice City is my favorite Grand Theft Auto game.
Well, and it's okay if you think it's fun. Like, I'm not. There's no dig at you.
We're fighting now. We're definitely fighting now.
We're definitely.
No, I also think that I agree with you to an extent too. Like, collectibles shouldn't be something that's like a requirement at all in any game. Like, don't make me do that.
I will say though, the backpacks in Spider-Man that I did, I probably did it. I don't know if I did it after as like technically part of Endgame, but I did find all the backpacks because they were all unique, and they like, he would find a backpack and he'd open it up and he'd be like, oh, this is the menu from the first date I took Mary Jane on. Like, and all of them were something different. Like, and they all had a little story to go with them. That was really fun to see all the stories, but like just finding backpacks just to find backpacks is not really fun.
Yeah, man. And now I really want to get the PS5 so I can play Spider-Man. That's all I want.
Spider-Man. I
just want to play Spider-Man. Oh man. Well, we haven't really talked about grinds yet, like the grind itself.
Yeah.
So, an Endgame, and this is going to be we're going to open a whole new can of worms with this, but Endgame, we say, has to have a grind, but it has to be a fun grind.
Yeah.
So I guess what makes a fun grind?
The reason that I think it needs to have some sort of grind, and by grind I mean repeatable content, I think. There needs to be content that you want to play more than once, and there needs to be a reason to play it more than once. And sometimes it's fill up a progress bar the more you play it, and that makes it fun to play through more than once. But maybe there's other ways to do grind too. That I think
if you get something from it every time is the key.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're building towards something, that's good. Now, when Tyler and I played Torghast 3 nights ago and played it for like an hour and 15 minutes and then lost and then didn't get anything, that felt like a bad grind. That
felt awful.
Yeah.
But if we play like a dungeon and have trouble on the last boss, at least the first 3 or 4 bosses along the way, we got some kind of item drop from, right? So
exactly.
Even if you fail at the end, you still got
and
something.
Like, if you play a game of PvP in Destiny and you lose, you still get blue gear and glimmer. So you're getting something, you know? And you actually can still get legendary drops if you lose too. It's really just like, once you complete that, you get something regardless. And I think that's what a grind needs. A grind can't be like, because the raid is not a grind to me. The raid is what you're building towards. The grind towards the raid needs to always award you something.
Right.
So you feel like you're becoming a hero and building towards being awesome.
Yeah, and that makes it a little bit more fun because, in all honesty, they could just let you drop into the raid in both Destiny or WoW or Final Fantasy. Like, you could just drop into the raid and like, regardless of power level, like if power level just wasn't a thing and you just had to do the mechanics, like, I would do it it wouldn't be as fun because the build up is really part of it, right? Like the getting powerful and then doing the hard content is more fun than just having the hard content available right away, I guess, because it feels like you earned it a little bit more. But then there's also the like getting there requires that repeatable content. Like the dungeons that we've played over and over in WoW and strikes that we've played over and over in Destiny, like I wouldn't want to play them more than once necessarily just to play them. Like they're not that inherently fun after you've played them one time. But the getting a drop or like getting to roll the dice on a slot machine, those are two different metaphors, but like getting to pull the slot machine every time you beat a boss or whatever, that's fun and sort of plays to that kind of like gambling instinct in a person, I guess. Like I'm gambling my time here to maybe get something that I want. And you don't always get it, but
also, I mean,
makes it fun.
Is there any better feeling than when you see like the yellow pop on the right side of your screen in Destiny and you get a new exotic for the first time? Oh, yeah. I don't think so. It makes a noise. It's very exciting.
Or when you kill Mortanis, a world boss in World of Warcraft, and you get that sweet purple drop, level 207.
That was cool. That was actually probably one of my favorite things we've done in WoW as a group was play that world boss. Can we play it again?
On Tuesday when it resets, I think there'll be another world boss.
Oh, see, that was so cool. Like I was actually very happy with that. I'm like, this is what World of Warcraft, what I thought in my mind, what I pictured.
Yeah. And
before I played it
is what raiding will be like, because we'll have 10 people and we'll be like coordinating to beat these bosses. It'll probably be hopefully a little bit more fun even because it'll require a little bit more coordination. Like I don't think that boss, like you had to do stuff on your own to make sure you didn't die to it, but it didn't really require a lot of coordination with the other people that we were playing with, but a raid will. So hopefully that'll be a little bit more, even more fun, I think.
I can already feel myself going back on what I said just 20 minutes ago.
We'll see. Well, it'll be interesting. We can come back. We can talk if we end up playing the raid
do like a
this
recap.
Week. Yeah. We can come back to it like next week. I want to hear, or after we do the raid, I want to hear and what you've been playing. Like how did it feel?
I'll let you know. You'll be there too. You'll know.
I've had some really good experiences, both in Destiny, like Destiny raiding. Like I'll never forget the first time me and my fire team killed Callus. Right, that was just an incredible moment because it took us so long. We played it for weeks because it was so hard.
I remember that because I wasn't playing with you guys yet, and you would give me status updates, and I was just like, I want to tell them so bad, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
Yeah, and we were figuring it out, and we were all underpowered. Like that was the other thing too. Is like we come back the next week and we'd be more powerful and could do it more. But I've done that in Final Fantasy 14 as well, where it's like the goal here is I want to play the last raid or the last wing of the raid, and to get there I need to be a certain power level, and the best way to get to that power level is to play not the old raid but like the lower tier raids beforehand, and you can only do them once a week or you only get rewards from them once a week, and they're so fun, and like getting better at them is really rewarding too. So that's another thing that I think is important in an end game is not only is the grind just to pull the slot machine fun, but also am I getting better at this? And I think Destiny does a pretty good job with that. And I think the harder content in MMOs do a good job with that. It's the stuff where you're just playing the same dungeons over and over that you've done before and you're not worried about losing, you're not worried about dying in. That's the stuff that's not quite as fun, especially in an MMO, because I think the fun floor for like just killing trash mobs is like not that fun in and of itself. Whereas Destiny killing trash mobs like is just inherently pretty fun.
You like hit the dregs and they just blow up instantly. It's a fantastic feeling.
But the grind that I had to beat the Eden raid, the first wing of the Eden raid every week in Final Fantasy 14 was so fun because I was getting more powerful as my character because my item levels were going up and I was getting the cool looking gear, which looks so cool in Final Fantasy. But I was also getting better as a player, right? I could feel myself getting better in I was doing more damage because I had higher numbers, but I was also just better at the encounters because you had to do a lot of different stuff to be able to win at these encounters. And if you didn't do them, your whole team was going to lose. So it was like, that was a really satisfying thing for me. And I'm excited to get there for World of Warcraft, but I hate that it has taken us like 50, 60 plus hours to get there. I think we could cut that like ramp up period by like 90% and still have a pretty good time.
Tyler, you're such a professional podcaster because we're now leaning right into our last discussion point, which is what is our dream end game?
Oh, yeah.
And I think your and I dream end game is very similar.
Yeah, well, describe your dream end game to me.
My dream end game is the grind is like 10 to 20 hours max. And
The grind to get there?
Yeah, and then you jump into that raid content very quickly.
Yep.
And I also, and yeah, I'm going to say this because I want to help people out there who have never raided in a game before because of this reason. And WoW does a good job at this with Raid Finder. There needs to be some sort of match-made element for people to learn how to raid. And that is the one thing that Destiny has been missing for so long, that people are like, raids are supposed to be special. There shouldn't be a match-made thing. Just make it like Raid Finder and WoW. It's an easier version of a raid, or a completely different one that's just easier to teach people, like, this is what it would be like when you were in a raid, you know, for real or whatever.
Yeah, I think... Good. Sorry.
I just was going to say, I think that's what my dream thing is. I mean, I kind of want to get a game that's just called Oops All Raids, you know?
That's what I want too.
Like 10 hours, 10 to 20 hours, you learn the mechanics of the game, and then they just throw you to the wolves and you play a bunch of raids. That would be great.
And those 10 to 20 hours are focused on teaching you the mechanics of your class or of the game itself, so that you feel like you're learning. And that's because I'm very like gameplay focused when it comes to that kind of stuff. But I think that what a lot of people like about like a World of Warcraft, the 50-hour grind to hit level 60 from 50, I don't think it took that long. It probably took us all 30 hours each to get from 50 to 60. We started at 50.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
To play through the campaign. If you're like a WoW lore nerd, I think you have a lot more fun with that grind because you care about the story, and I just don't. And so like that's what made it a lot harder for me as well. And part of it is because there's like 20 years of World of Warcraft history and like 30 years of Warcraft history, like leading up to this expansion that I just am not privy to. But also I just, an MMO is not a good way to tell a story. Like there's like a lot of like quest text to read, and like there were some cool cutscenes, like those were fun. But like it just, you felt like you had to read novels and novels and novels. And so I don't know what's happening in the story. But we do have one friend that we play with that's like really up on the lore and really loves it. And like he is getting so much out of playing that stuff. So, I mean, if you want to tell a story, I guess that's where you would do it too. I just wish it were shorter.
Yeah, I also think we've played 30 hours grinding because I boosted to 50. You were already at 50. If someone played that game vanilla straight from 1 to 60, it would take a long time, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know they overhauled the leveling system now, because that is one thing that it makes MMOs very inaccessible later on in their lifetime. Is like, if somebody needs to play 500 hours of content to get to where the game currently is, like that's not fun. So you see a lot of older MMOs will like revamp their leveling system, because like Final Fantasy 14 used to take like 200 hours to get through the storyline of the original game, the storyline of the like first 2 expansions, and then you got to the last expansion, and like that's just too long, you know, to be able to do the fun stuff. But they recently revamped and like compressed the storylines of all the older content, so you get there a lot faster now. But I think it still takes a long time.
Yeah, I kind of want to try Final Fantasy 14 at some point, you know? Maybe not now, but maybe like in the future.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a new expansion like next summer, probably, because they put out a new expansion every 2 years, and so does WoW, but they're on like off years. So every summer I find myself, or fall, I guess WoW just came out, but like every summer or fall I find myself playing one of those 2 games because they just put out an expansion. So when that happens, we'll get you in on some Final Fantasy.
Yeah, and when Destiny 2 launches the Vault of Glass again, we can do that. Yeah. And that will be really fun. I kind of am waiting for that right now. I've actually like been craving it almost too. Like I want to play some Destiny, but I'm like, don't do it, because you're going to get it and you're going to play it for an hour and then you're going to regret it because you don't care anymore. I'm like, that's true. That's true. I don't care anymore. Yeah. So, but I think we pretty much nailed it. So yeah, if you look for our game, Oops All Raids, it'll come out in spring 2024.
Oops All Raids.
Oops All Raids. We're still working on it. But until then, what have you been playing, Tyler?
Well, I've sure been playing a lot of World of Warcraft. That's what sort of spawned the idea to do this discussion episode. And you've been playing too. And we've got a good crew of people together. We have 5 regular folks to play, and it is so much fun to just hang out and play. Like as a meeting point to just like be able to go off and do our own thing for a little while, or like group up to do dungeons or whatever. We have so much fun because you don't necessarily have to pay full attention all the time, especially if we're off doing our own world quests or whatever. We can just kind of hang out and goof around and do. We've been doing this thing called Together Tube, where lets people join like a room together and watch YouTube videos together. And so we'll have like themed nights where we watch a bunch of 90s music videos or
fantastic
stuff like that. Fun. That was so fun to do in WoW, and also contributed to why I know nothing about the story, because I certainly wasn't paying attention to anything being said when we were listening to Enrique Iglesias, Bailamos, over and over.
Such a beautiful song.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been playing a lot of WoW. I finished A Way Out with Kelly, the co-op game.
How was
playing
that?
Last week. It was really fun, and the ending was cool. Had a good twist on there. It made me really excited for that company's new game. They showed a trailer for it at the Game Awards this year called It Takes Two, which looks like a much goofier game that doesn't quite take itself as seriously as A Way Out, but is still very heavily co-op focused. I mean, it's only co-op. Like, you cannot play by yourself, even if you wanted to. I guess unless you wanted to play with two controllers. I don't know. There's probably somebody who's done that. But yeah, it made me really excited for that game, and that comes out in like March. And then I've also been working my way through some Call of Duty. Did we talk about Finest Hour last week? I beat it.
We didn't talk about you beating it, but we talked about you playing it, I think.
I beat it.
Good. It was good?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's my favorite.
It is what it is. You know, if you're looking for a Call of Duty on a PlayStation 2 era console, that's certainly is one. Probably not even the best one.
Yeah, it exists.
There are more than one, and I don't think that's the best one. But it was fine. Like, I didn't dislike it. You know what I mean? Like, it was fine.
You know what Call of Duty game I kind of want to play, because I don't think I ever played the campaign of it, was World at War.
Oh yeah, me too.
That's got to be coming up for you sooner. Well, no, you got a lot of Modern Warfare and Black Ops for World at War, I think, because World at War was kind of like after 2, I think. Black Ops 2.
Yeah, World at War came out after Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Because they did like a bunch of World War II games, then they did this modern one, and then they were like, but we're not sure if this modern one is going to work, so we'll be working on another World War II one at the same time.
Yeah.
So they had this other World War II one ready to go, and then Modern Warfare, of course, took off, so they were able to break away from World War II. But I think it was kind of hedging their bets of like, well, if Modern Warfare fails, at least we can go back to World War II very quickly.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so I played Finest Hour, and I'm still working on Splinter Cell Conviction. I played a whole bunch of it today, and then I'm going to move on to Call of Duty 2, and that's where I'm at. What have you been playing?
Well, WoW with you, as we talked about for the last 35 minutes, but also on Game Pass, there is a game that came out just this week that I kind of forgot about and I really wanted to play, called Call of the Sea, which is a first-person puzzle game, and it's set on an island, and you play as Nora. It's like 1934, and your husband went missing on this island. You gotta go find him, and it's super fun. It's like kind of reminds me of like Firewatch and Monkey Island mixed together. Oh, cool. And it's like really beautiful, cel-shaded, pretty graphics, and it's like 5 hours to beat. I think I'm halfway through it, and I'm having a good time. It's fun. And it's Game Pass, so it's just there, you know?
It's just there to play. That's Game Pass is so great.
So I was playing that. I want to make a note that I didn't play this game because it's not out yet, but on the Discord, people were talking about the new Back for Blood, which is the left. I am on the hype train. I am too. All about it, and I am so stoked for that game to come out, and I hope it comes out on PC at the same time as it does on consoles, or hopefully it just comes out on PC first. I don't know, but I want to play that so bad.
Me too.
And then I've been kind of slowing down on games. My what you've been playing segments might be a little slower for everybody. I'm going back to school. It started this week, just so everyone knows. It's not gonna. I mean, I shouldn't affect me too much, but I'm not gonna have like 3 or 4 games under my belt. You know, it's gonna take me a while. If you were hoping for me to beat The Witcher 3 in the next 6 months, it's probably not going to happen. That's what I'm saying.
You've got to prioritize your time differently now that you have class.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah. So, but it's the Call of the Sea. I highly recommend it. It actually is making me think that the next episode I do might be a puzzle game from the past. Ooh. That's the only hint I'm going to give. So there's that. But we don't have any emails, but if you do want to email us, you can do codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com to send us one. You can rate, review, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, or just tell your friends. That's the best we can ask for. We do this podcast for free. We don't want any money. We just like to know that people listen, and we want to hear from you. We're on Twitter at Mecoletta, MECOLETTA. Tyler's on Twitter also at SneakerElf, ELPH. I don't know about you, Tyler, but I haven't tweeted in like a month and a half.
No, I don't really do a whole lot on social media.
Yeah, I just been retweeting things I find that are fun, and then I'm trying to like distance myself from my phone. Just because I'm spending a lot of time on screens. I'm trying to have a good balance. But that has nothing to do with video games. So I think we're going to call it here today, right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to say goodbye to everyone?
Sure. Goodbye, everyone.